Alright guys, welcome back to Valorant News. And North American Valorant descends into chaos yet again. Drama everywhere after last night's game because Leviatan took down Sentinels in a close fought series, it must be said. But afterwards, they dropped their head coach. Syyko came into this team from Xset not long ago. He helped build this roster from the ground up. But even Sentinels social media didn't confirm this. It was the CEO, Rob Moore himself. Syyko is gone from the team. This game was a shock to many in the community. Why exactly has this happened? What does the falling out come from? Has he made serious questionable decisions? North American Valorant in shambles, and we're going to dive into it all today. Very much enjoy your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always, I would greatly appreciate it. So first of all, from Syyko, thought as remarkable timing because, as he says here, his daughter was in the crowd. Week 3 match against Leviatan, tough matchup against a good team, but I have my #1 fan in the stands. Really awesome stuff. But, you know, the day didn't end in quite the positive way for him than it started. So let's just dive into that series, right? Because there was 2 series in the Americas last night, one of which was Sentinels versus Leviatan. Now, okay, TenZ was playing here. We know that he had his finger kind of injury or infection that he's had. So, I mean, that's obviously not ideal for him. And clearly he's dealing with a lot of stuff out of the game right now. So it still does blow my mind how much, like, hate TenZ gets, honestly, for something. Like, he has a lot of fans, obviously, but, I mean, man, some of the people that tweet and stuff at TenZ is like, this guy needs to sell social media, and I can't blame him. I thought he played quite well, really, until the final map of the series here. Sentinels had a good go at this. They lost the split in the end. It was a super close game 1. Game 2 was super close as well that they won. So I thought the Sentinels, given the fact that Leviatan have been considered by many to be one of the best teams in the game, and certainly up there with having a great chance to qualify for Masters, even go further than that. Even during Sao Paulo, some said, including NRG, that Leviatan are the team they would expect to win. Dephh somehow on, 11 HP, clutches this 1 versus 2. I don't know how he didn't die in this first gunfight, to be honest, and still gets the 1 versus 2. So it was all looking so good. And Dephh also gets a lot of hate as well, and he clutched a big 1v2 right here. Obviously the IGL for the roster. And what's happened with their coaching staff and with Dephh and with Marv and with Pancada and all the decisions they've made is actually remarkable. So they lost the game 1, Sentinels. They did, though, bounce back game 2. They went 13-11 here on the ascent, and it was zyppan that clutched a big 1v2 here when it mattered to close out the game. So you thought, wow, Sentinels, they might be back here, because this level of performance against Leviatan I thought was pretty impressive. We know that no North American team had beaten a team from South America or Brazil in a long time now, and it finally was going to happen later in the day with Evil Geniuses we'll get to, but it didn't happen with Sentinels. They did lose the game 3. They got demolished here. This was honestly more of the map that I expected. I thought Leviatan were going to do this to Sentinels in at least a couple of the maps in the series. They did do it here on the Pearl, and I mean, yeah, 1-2 nice shots here from Taco to get the job done. Leviatan, great team, it's got to be said, but I mean, yeah, Sentinels didn't really come to play on the final map. TenZ was playing a bit too aggressive, I think you can say. He was maybe looking to find a bit too much action. It wasn't really working out in his favour. And as Syyko says, 1-2 versus Leviatan. GG's to them. We should have closed out split for the 2-0, but we let it slip away. Proud of the progress this week. Still lots of work to be done. Now, of course, none of this work is going to be done for him with Sentinels because he's now gone from the team, but clearly wasn't expecting that to happen going into, well, even doing this tweet. He thought, okay, look, we're making progress here. Now, look, it's not great for Sentinels, don't get me wrong. And Sentinels came into the season saying, Rob Moore, the CEO, said outright, the first season they played, they achieved a lot. They won Masters that year in Reykjavik, like they did very well. They killed it on the actual performance side of their organization. Year 2, they killed it on the content side of the organization, right? The clout game was out of control, the Shroud thing, the Tarek thing, all this. And year 3, he said, we're going to do both. We're going to keep the clouts, keep all the big name players. TenZ, of course, is still there, but still deliver results on the server. So far, though, hasn't been the case. Sentinels have been underwhelming, and this to many might be an acceptable series loss. But for Sentinels, given their goals, it is apparently not. And their start of the season is also apparently not acceptable by any means. As Second says, good improvement, can and will be better, resting up. But surely after this, changes were being made. So these were the overall numbers here. Leviatan 2, Sentinels 1. It was 14-12 on split, which really they will feel like they should have won here. They did make a comeback here towards the end of the second half, but Ascent was 13-11 their way, and then 13-4. Not particularly close. TenZ had a bit of a rough time, but in fairness, so did the majority of the team. And the overall numbers, TenZ again, 35-49. Tricky series for him. zyppan was their standout player. Dephh did pretty well. And I know that people are coming at TenZ, but fundamentally, he had the finger infection. He's dealing with a lot. You would think that, you know, Sentinels, tricky spot with the whole TenZ story, you know, an acceptable loss in some way. And they were making some improvements, it's got to be said. Before we then discuss the Sen drama, I wanted to give some credit to Evil Geniuses because I have been obviously very critical of their organization, and I think for good reason. But I did say the Demon 1 pickup was a good idea. I just didn't like the BCG BCJ benching, but maybe BCJ was indeed the problem because they come into this series against Crew and they get the job done. Demon 1 was phenomenal this series on all the agents he played. And to be honest, right, if there's any Latin American, South American, Brazilian team that I would expect any team to be able to beat right now, it's probably Crew. They are the weakest of them, I would say. And EG, if there's any chance they actually had to win a series, it was probably this one. But in fairness, they did it. And there will be some questions raised about whether this was actually the correct decision. Of course, Jorgemo actually using the Raze at times was, I mean, I don't really know why Jorgemo isn't on the dual list more often because, I mean, he was on the Harbor, the Omen, the Raze. Like, when he was on the Raze, it seemed to make sense in that decider. But Demon 1 used the Jet, the Brimstone, and the Killjoy and did well on all of them, which was super impressive, I thought. Con was good as well. Boostio, Ethan, makes sense to keep them around. And ever since Crew brought cNed back into the team, it really just hasn't been the same for them. They've been struggling a fair bit. And even as Demon 1 says, not bad for an open tryouts finds, referencing their kind of questionable cryptic tweets from just yesterday. And that's the first team so far at VCT Americas to actually beat a non-NA team, which is kind of incredible to think. Out of the 5 NA teams, they haven't beaten anyone outside of NA yet, apart from EG now taking down Crew. So fair play. Maybe Potter had it right all along. Still a bit confused why BCJ was the one to go, and I'm still not convinced this makes EG actually good, but I do think it proves that the Demon 1 pickup was the correct one, and I'm glad to see they're taking chance on this type of young talent. The overall numbers went as follows. Pearl was 11-13 in Evil Genius's favour. Ascent went back the other way, and then Fracture was 13-7 when it mattered. They delivered the goods. Com 22-11. Impressive performance on the Sova, given there was some serious criticism that he should have been the one to go as opposed to Demon 1, given that Demon 1 can clearly play absolutely any single role as it stands. Then, though, we get into the drama. So North American Valorant is absolutely built different, and this is remarkable for many reasons. As Rob Moore says, this is the CEO of Sentinels, we have come to the difficult decision to part ways with Syyko. Adam Kaplan will be stepping in as the head coach. So Kaplan currently the assistant coach, and now he's put in head coach, right? And you can understand why as a result of this. So this is crazy, right? They just lost a series against Leviatan. Pretty, decent series, all things considered. They've got issues going on outside of the game, the TenZ stuff. Now, Syyko is gone, dropped as the coach of the team. We don't see this often in esports. In regular sports, it's a common occurrence. If the team is underperforming, the coach has got to go. And sometimes that's controversial, sometimes it's not. But in esports, usually the players are deemed at fault and the coach is given some time to sort things out. Now, Syyko, in fairness, was involved in building this team from the start. He was the one that I guess made the executive call to bring Sassy and Pancada in, to keep Dephh and Zekan over from XZ, and to maintain TenZ on the roster, and to bring Marvden, I guess, as their substitute. I'm sure Syyko was in part responsible for that. And I think those are all reasonable, acceptable decisions based on what we expected at the start of the season. As things have gone, though, there have been some questions. Marv not having his visa in time, the whole Sassy Pancada role changes. There have been some questionable decisions happening, but I don't think anything has been exactly criminal, right? From a coaching perspective, I feel like a lot of the changes they made or attempted to make are pretty reasonable. And okay, if Marv actually was available and had his visa, they might be in a better spot than they presently are if they could bring him in, as they probably should do. So what's happened here? What's the breakdown been? Because Syyko tweeted after the series seemingly thinking he was going to be staying, right? And I think that makes sense. Has Rob Moore decided this himself? Who has made this decision? Because it's not exactly like there's a general manager here per se that's going to make a call as to whether the coach has got to go. Is this Rob Moore himself saying, I don't like this guy, I don't like the decisions he's made, I'm going to straight up fire him right now and bring Kaplan in his head? I don't know, right? But this is a shocker to so many people. And even as Ye says, don't let Chet see this, and we'll discuss the reason why that in a second. But even dapr goes, this was not on the wheel. We know that there's the strat wheel kind of meme that Sentinels rolled with, where he would spin the wheel and TenZ would stand there as well and talk about stuff, and dappr's like, this is not on the strat wheel to drop their coach. And then Zoms is like, send the champion, that's me. So I mean, man, what a crazy turn of events. And even as XZ says, and for understandable reasons, North American Valorant in shambles. This was even before Syyko got dropped. Cloud9 says wrong because we're good. You sent Ye to challenges, says XZ, and you sent 4 of your former players to the bottom of the VCT, talking about the various teams the XZ guys have joined, and I guess Zekan on Sentinels and some of the guys that Evil Genius is. And then XZ says all 5 actually #GE fighting, talking about Arin that they sent to Global Esports. And then in a since deleted tweet, Cloud9 say make that a 6 because of course their coach Syyko has now been dropped as well, which is, I mean, obviously they ended up deleting this, but still, I mean, that is hilarious stuff, it's got to be said. And then as Chet says, Prac.com wins again. Now this is just hilarious in a way. Now I feel bad, right? Syyko's obviously lost his job here, but everyone's poking fun at it. And I can't blame Chet for doing so, because there was a drama. If you guys forget this drama, I'll just remind you guys quickly, this is in January this season. season when Chet was very much promoting Prac instead of Gangster for being the way that they schedule scrims. Chet is on the Prac train, Syyko is on the Gangster train, and Gangster is rough right now, but at least the devs are involved, all this type of stuff. You guys forget this, then there was a massive beef for seemingly no reason over like which server to use to sort out practice for teams, and fearing change, clinging to the past is the peak of laziness, and then Chet and Syyko, they kept going at it here, and then as Syyko finished off with, we'll see how this shifts this year without Ye and Marv to carry, and then Chet even quote tweeted this recently after NRG beat them and said, how does that taste type thing. And now Syyko's gone from the team. So what do you guys think has happened there internally? What decision has Syyko made, or like friends or bridges that he's burned to get dropped in this manner? Because this is pretty shocking. Syyko, like mid-tournament, right? This is mid-stage, mid-season, when arguably the head coach role is the most important. They have significant challenges to deal with going forwards. They've got the TenZ concerns to handle. They've got the Marved visa situation potentially coming into the team to deal with. They've got role conflict and concerns. They're not looking so good in terms of their performances so far, but they could turn that around going forwards. They will need to quickly, and now is the time that they've really got to, make those changes. And I guess the changes the CEO wants to make is Syyko out, Kaplan to the head coach role, and see what happens from there. There were also some questions though. What about Syyko? Like, where's he going to go next? Would a team like 100 Thieves say, hey Syyko, come in and help us out here, right? Because 100 Thieves, after losing Sean Gares, they're struggling right now. I think in that department, Syyko could be viable, or they could just beg Sean Gares to come back, which is probably the correct thing to do. But even as Marv says, it is time after all the Sentinels issues, worry about your visa first. And then Marv says, got that. Now, does he mean got that in terms of, yeah, I get your point, mate, I'm getting it sorted, like got that? Or does he mean got that visa, right? Which maybe is what he means. And if that is true, and Marv has had his visa confirmed over the last couple of days, we could be seeing him back in the starting team for a starting roster in Sentinels very shortly indeed. And he's just looking at the standings, right? 1 and 2 for Sentinels, 3 and 5 map counts, but fundamentally it's not dissimilar to NRG, another top favorite to try and make it. And right now, like the teams in North America outside of Cloud9 are really struggling. Sentinels are certainly looking like massive outsiders to make it to Masters Tokyo, but is that justified enough after 3 games of the season to drop your coach? It's an interesting question. Very much enjoyed your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, take care, and I'll see you next time.